I'm dreaming of a welcome, huge movie fanatic Nate stopping on by. This time I'm coming at you to review a movie I never really imagined I'd ever be reviewing, but seeing as how it's June, I thought it only made sense to stop on by to do a movie review of White Christmas. So my history with this movie doesn't go back very far at all, as one would imagine, being mostly a horror film buff from the age of 11 and 12 and beyond. Working at Suncoast in the 90s, I would imagine, November, December, we would have played this in the store. I can't remember. I mean, I was kind of anti-musicals at the time, and more or less still am, but some do manage to slip through the cracks, and this is a movie that I never saw until a local theater, actually, I think it was 2019, actually played it, a digital version of it in the theater as a kind of a special show, showing. And I'm like, you know what, I've never seen this thing. Getting on in years, I'm a little more open to seeing. I mean, it was just cool to be able to see it in a digital projection in the theater. So I'm like, you know what, let's just see it. And at the time, it was obviously like November, December time of year and stuff. So at the time, I don't remember thinking much of it, although, having revisited it twice since. So I've seen this 3 times and twice recently, because I did come across for $3 a DVD. And then like I kind of watched that, and then I'm like, God, this probably looks really good on Blu-ray. So I was thinking maybe November, December-ish I might spring for the Blu-ray. Well, turns out it was like last week or something I came across the Blu-ray at Half Price Books for $2. So I'm like, oh yes, that's one of those situations where it's hard not to go, like you're in public at a store and it's hard not to go, yes, like fuck, because I didn't really want to pay, $9 or whatever the hell they're, asking for White Christmas Blu-ray new. So to be able to find it used for $2, I was like, there's some occasions like that where you're at Half Price Books looking at clearance, and it's hard not to go, fuck yes, out loud. I never have. There was a while ago a guy who I was looking at the movies next to, and he found they had for a while there, they had 2 of the Scream Factory Howling/Fog double features, and I got one of them, and the other one was weeks prior, and the other one was still there for a while. And I was next to this guy when he found that, and he kind of very quietly out loud went like, yes, to himself. So I mean, he, I can contain myself. He couldn't, but I mean, so that Blu-ray release is really weird, because on the spine it doesn't say Howling or Fog. It says like Scream Queen double feature. It's really weird. So when he pulled it out and looked at the cover, he's like, yes, because it was Howling and Fog. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. But I'll tell you what, I was happy to find the Blu-ray for $2, $1 less than I paid for the DVD used. But so I've seen it 2 times recently, once on DVD and then just recently on Blu-ray. And I guess this movie was I guess the most successful movie of 1954, I want to say. I should also mention that this is the very first movie. Back in the 50s, obviously, movie studios were competing with the old television box, and to do one of the ways they competed with the television. I think this is before they went with the wide CinemaScope stuff, but around the same time, I don't really know. But one of the things they did, and Paramount did, and this is the very first movie to do it, introduced the old VistaVision, which was supposed to be a more high fidelity movie-going experience than your traditional 35 millimeter. And very briefly, what VistaVision was all about was, instead of the 35 millimeter film running like this, top to going up like this in the in the camera, and then the projector, it went sideways in the camera. And I guess that was a way for them to like more utilize I think it was the same size, like 35 millimeter, but they were just doing it in a sideways way, which gave them a bigger, I can't imagine it was even much bigger and made that much of a difference, but more of a bigger film frame to make it, a more clear image. It was probably more or less just a I don't know what, just a marketing gimmick. But I mean, they actually, did come up with a camera where the film would go through it sideways versus, up and down. And you can even see if you watch some of these movies that were VistaVision, how like on a movie if the films got scratched through the camera or whatever, there'd be like lines that go up and down. Well, in VistaVision movies, if it, if the if the negative or whatever was scratched at any point, you can see the lines going this way. So it is in fact truly going sideways. But my only thought is I can't imagine that the quality difference was that much between VistaVision and 35. And then correct me if I'm wrong, but it's very possible that they just printed the VistaVision onto conventional 35 millimeter film to send it to all the theaters anyway, so they're just projecting it the same way. So wouldn't that reduce the resolution in theory? I'm not 100% up on all my VistaVision know-how and technology and stuff, but if they print all the VistaVisions just to traditional 35, you think the resolution would be lost. You'd almost have to project everything with the VistaVision projector to retain the resolution. That's just a thought. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. But on to the movie. Holy cow, I'm going to talk about the movie. Having seen it now 3 times and 2 times recently, I mean, it's a fun movie for what it is. I've actually gotten kind of interested and gotten into Bing Crosby movies and music in the past couple years. So I've actually I've got in the past several years, maybe 2 or 3 years, I've actually got kind of interested in Bing Crosby as a musician and him being in movies and stuff. So in my I can't, when I was a teenager, you never would have ever made me believe that I was would be getting into, well, I mean, I was into classical and 20s, 30s, 40s music and stuff as a teenager. But if you told me when I was a teenager that I was going to be watching these musicals like White Christmas and Holiday Inn and Bing Crosby musicals, I would have said, get out of here. But turns out, I guess when you age, strange things can happen. So I become, a relatively, not a huge, but a kind of a Bing Crosby fan in the past 2 or 3 years. And that makes watching this a lot more entertaining because, I don't really care too much about any of the other performers in this movie. I do, I have, gotten quite a bit of respect for, Bing Crosby in the past 2 or 3 years. So, for me, watching anything with Bing Crosby in it is kind of fun, and seeing him in color, and then I guess he had blue eyes apparently, and those blue eyes sure pop on the old VistaVision, whatever the hell it is, 50s color or whatever. But yeah, so basically this is I mean, I guess you can say I was more or less disappointed the first time I saw this, because in my opinion the best Christmas movies are dripping Christmas throughout the whole movie, like A Christmas Story, or even Christmas Vacation. To me, all of the good Christmas movies are like dripping Christmas from the beginning to the end. And the weird thing about this movie, and I'll just get this out of the way right away, and then I'll just talk more. Yay, lucky you. Is that the weird thing about this movie is it's exactly 2 hours long, which is quite long for back then. And only the last, and this isn't even exaggeration, only the last, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes even have the Christmas feel. It might even be more like 5 minutes. The rest of the movie, if you're watching it, you wouldn't even necessarily know you're watching a Christmas holiday movie, which is really, really weird to me. Most Christmas movies that I'm familiar with, even Holiday Inn to an extent, what's funny about Holiday Inn is that basically covers all the holidays throughout the year. So I mean, you can pretty much watch that any time of the year. But I do think that Holiday Inn doesn't it start with and end with Christmas or something? I haven't seen that for a while. Perhaps I can review that at some point as well. That's another one that I've gotten to know and only in recent times. But that's another thing, talking about Holiday Inn, that this movie is kind of I mean, I guess you might as well just call it kind of a remake, and in my opinion a lesser, more subpar remake. I mean, obviously, technically, it's better, for VistaVision and color and this kind of stuff. I take that back. I mean, black and white, I mean, isn't inferior to color. What the hell am I saying? But, from I don't know, the dance numbers might be a little more charged up and more, whatever, impressive possibly in this movie than in Holiday Inn. But I prefer Holiday Inn just because I prefer the the 40s in black and white, and a younger Bing Crosby and Fred Astaire, and I like Fred Astaire as well, so that's got Fred Astaire and Bing Crosby going for it. I can't remember the dames that are in that movie, but anyway, if you've seen Holiday Inn, this is kind of like a remake. But I can't, even, watching it twice recently, I'm just like, God, this is such a weird Christmas movie, because I don't even know what the percentage of that is. The movie's 2 hours long, and only the last 5 minutes really even have a Christmas feel. It's just so weird to me, because the most Christmas movies that I really like, as I already said, Christmas Story, Christmas Vacation, whatever other Christmas movies you can pull out of your you-know-what, I mean, from beginning to end, they're Christmas, and there isn't even any snow until the last 5 minutes of this movie. And so anyway, the basic premise of this movie, and another thing I was disappointed in when I saw it at the theater, and it was really cool to see it, even though it was digital, see it for the very first time in the theater. I thought that was really cool. It was like a limited, 1 or 2 day engagement. I wasn't going to pass that up. Plus, it was really cheap. I'm glad I saw it, at the theater. That was fun. But one thing I was disappointed in not being more of an anti-military guy, and not for, I guess we'll just say that, an anti-military guy, is it's kind of like a pro-military movie, which is a bummer. The beginning of it takes place in World War II, and they're overseas in Europe, and obviously the majority of this movie, even if it takes place, like so many movies in the 50s, if it takes place outdoors, it's an indoor set. I hate that crap, and it's just like, oh my God, like hearing people like yell, and they're supposed to be outdoors, and hey, how you doing? And like hearing the echo of the inside studio, it's just like, oh my God. So I think there's only like a couple scenes at the train station that are probably actual authentic exterior locations, and it's just like, oh my God. So I'm not big on that kind of crap where you film the exteriors, inside. But I mean, when you're dealing with these big bulky VistaVision cameras and all this kind of stuff, I suppose it makes more sense to have a controlled environment. But I think that just, movies like that, it worked better in the black and white era, but not so much in the color era. But anyway, this movie begins with, Bing Crosby and this Danny Kaye. I do think Danny Kaye is really good, and he's kind of like the comic relief / the male dancer of this movie. Yeah, I think he's fun, and the women are, cute or whatever, and that one dancer chick, oh my God, she was skinny or whatever, but could she, oh my God, could she dance? I mean, holy crap. I will say the dance numbers in this movie, they really they're really, really, really impressive, and I'll tell you that right now. But the basic premise of this movie is there's this general. I'll just make it short and simple. There's this general that's being replaced, and they kind of usher him out on Christmas Eve in war-torn Europe on this touching scene or whatever, and cut to years later. Oh yeah, and then Danny Kaye saves Bing Crosby's life. Bing Crosby was like he kind of played like what he really was kind of himself, like doing what I guess he really did or purported to have done, being a popular singer at the time and movie star and stuff. I guess he may have done this, gone overseas during World War II and sung for the troops or whatever. So he's kind of portraying in this movie what he actually, because he in the movie is like a singer, whatever, a solo singer, and just trying to brighten up the troops in war-torn Europe on Christmas Eve, and Danny Kaye ends up saving Bing Crosby character's life, and kind of holds it over him for years and years and years, and uses that against him, like, you owe me, so let's become an act, kind of a double act or whatever the hell they called it, two guys singing together versus you normally singing on your own, Bing Crosby, and now will become a two-guy act or whatever. So they go on and do that, and I can't remember if it's, I think it's like by the time you get to the middle of I don't know. I think the movie takes place primarily, because it was what's the beginning, 44 or 45, 1945 or something. So then, oh yeah, so if it was 44, okay. Then the majority of it takes place in 54. Gotcha. So I think the majority of the movie takes place 10 years later, and these guys end up hooking up with these two sisters, which kind of look nothing alike really, but whatever, they're sisters. And just like with the Danny Kaye Bing Crosby situation, Danny Kaye's the dancer, so one of the sisters a dancer, and the other, they all can sing, right? But only one of the chicks can dance, and only one of the guys can dance. So the chick and the guy that doesn't dance. Well, not. I mean, they move their feet around a little and do this and that and choreograph stuff. But as far as like the just world class dance scenes and stuff, they just leave it to Danny Kaye and that other skinny chick. But the movie's basically about them just, I can't believe, it's weird how the simple story is dragged out into 2 hours, but having seen it again for the second time, or recently for the third time, but a second, I watched it 2 times recently because I got the DVD and then I watched it again with the Blu-ray. I mean, I don't think it ever really gets boring, because they throw a dance in there or a song. And then one thing that gets a little kind of dumb is like when the girls do their first introduction song, and then later on, I don't know, they owe some landlord money, so the guys, Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye sneak them out of there, and then they kind of, I don't know, they stall the whoever they owed money to, the landlord or whatever, by performing like their song kind of like, so it's kind of goofy, like the guys perform the girls' number, like a record of the girls' song, not long after the girls perform it themselves. So you kind of get to hear that song twice. Once performed by the women, and the second time, fake performed by the guys, if you will. But to make a long review not as long, the movie's basically about, they end up, I guess they follow, I don't know why they're following the girls, but they follow the girls to some, God, you'd think I'd remember the state because it's just said it so often and stuff, but it's to this one state where it's supposed to be all snowy this time of year and it's not snowy, and it turns out these girls were booked to sing at this one inn, can't even remember the name of the inn, and it turns out the general that they, had that heartfelt, he was replaced at the beginning of the movie. It turns out he owns this inn that is there's like no snow, so the business is really bad, and they might even have to cancel the show with the girls because there's no people staying there because it's all, is it Vermont? Maybe it's Vermont, maybe it's not Vermont, what the hell do I know, but it's supposed to be all snowy when they arrive, and it isn't, and it's not until, like I say, the last 5 minutes of the movie. But they come up with, once they find out that the general is working at, or owns this this inn that he put all his frickin' savings into restoring and updating or whatever. I don't know the name of the what you do to houses and stuff, whatever, you make it all improvements. He spent all his retirement and pension and all his savings, everything, to put into renovations on this inn, this country inn place. And once like Danny Kaye and Bing Crosby characters find that out, they're like, well, we gotta help the old general 10 years later. And there's another sad scene where the general's like, I don't know, he might be wanting to try to get out of that business anyway, seeing as how it's like there's no snow and business is bad and stuff. So he sent a letter to some guy at the army, and he's like, I'm going to go back to active duty or whatever, and he gets a letter back saying, haha, funny joke, have fun there in your, in retirement or whatever. So that kind of makes him sad, like, oh shit, he's too old to be a general or to even do any like active duty in the army, oh boy. And Bing Crosby has a great line where he said, there's something to be said for recreation or leisure or whatever, and which I would agree with, definitely. And the fact that this guy just wants to, I don't know what, be a army guy until whatever, he can't even walk anymore, whatever. But so at that point, or I don't know if it even happened before then, Danny Kaye and Bing Crosby are all like, well, let's make the general's, General's Day or whatever, and surprise them with this big, huge, whatever shindig, and we'll go on TV, and I'll recruit, I'll ask for any, former military or whatever that's in the area to come down, and we'll just throw the general this big slam bang party surprise thing. A kind of 10 years later of showing support for the general on Christmas Eve. And so the movie is just about, I mean, maybe halfway through, maybe that's when that is figured out, like that's what they're going to do or whatever. And of course, like with so many movies, you've got this misunderstanding, like, and it happens, I don't know what, maybe a little bit over halfway through, where someone, there's this one character who likes listening to all the phone calls and stuff, and she hears just a part of a phone call where it makes it look like Bing Crosby, and initially the love interest of Bing Crosby thought it was just really great what he's doing for the general by putting on this surprise shindig and stuff for him and bringing him business and this and that, and then she gets wind of hearing that he's doing it for $200,000 worth of free publicity, and it's not true, and the one person listening in on the phone line just heard a bit of a conversation and got the wrong message and tells it to Bing Crosby's love interest. So for like 30 minutes, she's all, maybe not 30, maybe 20 or 25, she's all cold on Crosby, and he doesn't know why, and she ends up leaving, and he goes back to, well, he had to go to New York anyway to go on TV to ask all the military people to show up at within the area to show up at the General's Inn or whatever. But of course you got to have that, how like in rom-coms and comedies there's always like that, last act where it's got to go, they break up, or it doesn't look good, and then at the end it's like yay. And they do it with kids movies too. Johnny Five is dead. No, he's not. He was hiding in the back of the truck. Yay. E.T.'s dead. No, he's not. His light came back on. So there you go. That's the majority of the movie, and a big surprise for the general. Yippee-ki-yay, big deal. And then at the very end of the movie, they keep saying every day, we're going to get snow, I'm pretty sure it's Vermont they were talking about. And at the very end of the movie, it starts snowing, and it's like, oh boy. And like I say, like the last 5 minutes is the only part of this movie that really has any Christmas feel. I mean, I guess maybe the beginning does too, because Bing Crosby sings White Christmas at the beginning and at the end. So I guess at the beginning it's a little bit of Christmas feeling, but as far as full-blown, snow and all them goofy, fluffy outfits they're wearing, that's on so many of the covers and posters and stuff, that's like the last 5 minutes of the movie. So what do I think about the movie? I think it's one of the rare Christmas movies that you can watch all year round, because the majority of it has no snow to be found. In majority of it, you wouldn't even know it's a Christmas movie. There's this one goofy song though, when they're on their train to Vermont or wherever the hell the last half of this movie takes place, where it's this song which I think is, I don't know, I'm surprised how bad like the note they hit at the very end of the song, the snow song, like snow, 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 and like I'm surprised. The song was fine, kind of annoying because in Minnesota I get my fair or more than fair share of snow and I get sick of it. But so it's not a very pleasant song. But the song was fine or whatever. But the end, like the last note everyone hit, it's just like, oh my God! It's like they put the outtake in the movie. But there's some cringy scenes, like very cringy scenes, like that's I guess that scene on the train when they're singing about snow and stuff. But I will say that, I mean, oh my God, the dance numbers, with Danny Kaye and the skinny chick. I mean. Those are some crazy ass dance numbers. And that one where, I don't know what the song's called, but it's about, choreography or whatever. I'm surprised, the outfits that they're wearing were very like 60s-ish. It's like they in that scene, how it was like all maybe like European or French artistic, I don't know what the hell kind of clothes that he was wearing, and like all the girls were wearing kind of like it just looked French, I guess because of his hat thing or whatever, but that scene, if you showed that to me, or if you just showed someone that scene, you'd swear that was from a movie out of the 60s. Like the outfits and stuff, it just looks like it's from the 60s. So that scene was like really, really weird. Like the outfits, like the dresses that the girls were in, and even his outfit screamed the 60s. But I can't emphasize enough how insane like the dance numbers get, midway and towards the end of the movie and stuff. And it's funny how they're rehearsing and stuff at this inn or whatever, and it's like they'll do these huge big dance numbers basically as and I guess not being in the business or knowing anything about it, I guess you have to rehearse. But it's funny to see most elaborate dances in the movie are just done as basically rehearsals for the big shindig that happens. I mean, at the very end of the movie, there's like, you know, when the general's there and all the military guys are there, I mean, there's not any big dance numbers. So, I mean, it's kind of weird that they like trained for this, and then like I guess maybe the movie ends before they do the rest of it, and we're not going to see the rest of the dances we've already seen over again after all. So, but it's funny. I have mixed feelings about this movie. Like I think it's a goofy Christmas movie, and you know I've known about this movie forever. Obviously, being a movie buff, and I just really surprised that only like the last 5 minutes of a 2-hour movie really even has any Christmas feeling to it. But like I said, I guess that's a way makes it so it's a movie you can watch year round. What would my star rating be for this movie? Um, yeah, okay. I guess I can go as high as 3 stars out of 4 stars for White Christmas. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of cringy shit going on in this movie, and you know, just like there's some cringy stuff like snow, 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 snow. That scene and other scenes are cringy, like when Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye do the girls you know song and stuff like that. But I mean, on the whole, it's got the 50s charm, and you know, I traditionally I'm not the biggest fan of like 50s, whatever the hell it is, Technicolor, but there are rare occasions like War of the Worlds, and I guess this where the color, especially on Blu-ray, looks really great and stuff. So, I mean, God, so I gave it 3 stars, that seems high. 2.5 stars out of 4 stars for White Christmas. I mean, it's I'd recommend, I'd more so recommend Holiday Inn than you know, if I was going to pick one of them. See the thing is, I love black and white movies, but I also think, especially on Blu-ray, like the color of this movie is kind of fun as well. So I mean, each one, you know, has its own, you know, pluses and negatives. I mean, you know, from what I understand, they actually wanted Fred Astaire to be the guy in this, next to Bing Crosby, very much like with Holiday Inn. But I guess, I don't know, there's conflicting reports. I don't know, from whatever reason, maybe Fred Astaire thought he was, one of the reasons is Fred Astaire thought he was too old or something, and to do all this fancy slam bang dancing at this point, which very well might have been the case after all. But kind of a bummer that, you know, they couldn't reunite for this movie. But, you know, Danny Kaye is pretty fun, kind of like a 50s Pee Wee Herman or something. But yeah, I mean, it's not something, I'm glad I got like the DVD for $3 and the Blu-ray for $2. I only invested $5 into this movie. Well, I guess if you count, I can't remember what the ticket, I don't think the ticket cost very much to get into the theater to see it on the special screening. But yeah, it's a movie that, you know, it's fun to get to know a movie that's so old, you know, and that's what I prefer doing versus seeing new crap that comes out. Because I mean, I take this movie over the majority of, even though I don't completely love this movie or anything, I take this over the majority of the new crap that's coming out now. Because, you know, I'm a more or less kind of a newfound Bing Crosby fan. So I guess if it wasn't for that, maybe I wouldn't care very much about this movie. But since he is in it, I can care about this movie. Guess that about does it for my review of White Christmas. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, we'll catch you on the next video.